everybody. I'm Ryan from Fireside Yankees with my friend and co-host Aiden. And Aaron Judge came out recently. He had this to say following the elimination of the Yankees from the playoff race, which obviously is a massive disappointment for the Yankees. But when asked about it, he said, "We've got a lot to work on, a lot of things to change, and a lot of stuff going on around here that needs to be fixed. I've got some ideas. It's going to take all of us. It's going to be talking with everybody in the organization all the way down through the minor leagues." And, you know, I think it's interesting that the captain of the Yankees, their highest paid player, their best player, you know, the guy that you think of when you think of the New York Yankees, comes out and basically says things have to change. And, you know, there are a lot of different ways to interpret it. You know, I have my interpretations. I believe you have yours. But, you know, Aiden, tell us a little bit about how you're doing today and walk us through what you thought about the quote, what you took away from it, and you know, what you think what things you think need to change.
Ryan, I'm doing pretty good today. Still a bit miserable about the weather here in the Bronx. It's been raining since Friday, and I don't do rainy weather well. It makes me feel sluggish and it gives me headaches. So I'm pretty done with this tropical storm that's been over the tri-state area for the past however many days. But as for those comments, I mean, he put it perfectly. I think Yankee fans have been thinking of the same thing all season. I'm sure Judge has been thinking this all season, and maybe even for the past couple of years. He's probably thought some things need to change. I mean, just like the organizational hitting philosophy, like there's so much work to be done there. And I mean, it's just, there's like, we could go on and on, but there's just so much to change. And I think it does start with the hitting. I mean, this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. It is very telling to me, and I think it should be very, very telling to everyone else, that the Yankees' best player, who makes $40 million a year, he's the captain of the team, does not want to be coached by the Yankees hitting coaches. He hasn't since, I believe, 2017. He goes to his own guy, Richard Schneck, who's never played professional baseball. And the results are there. The results are obviously there. He's been one of the best hitters, if not the best hitter in the league ever since he's been in the league. He hit 62 home runs last year. He played not half a season this year, but he missed a lot of games this year, and he still put up at least 35 home runs. I was at the game Friday. He hit 3 home runs. This is a guy who does not subscribe to the Yankees hitting coaches, and it works for him. So clearly, the Yankees are doing something wrong, and there needs to be a very big change in that respect. Ryan, I'm curious what you say to have about his comments. I don't know if I took words out of your mouth there, but I mean, what are your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, you know, I think the big thing for me right now when it comes to where the Yankees are at and what I perceived from what Aaron Judge had to say was that, you know, how do I put this? The Yankees and, you know, how they've kind of operated for a while, you know, it's gotten into the playoffs. Like, we can't sit here and say that the Yankees model for, let's say, in our lifetimes, right, which is roughly like 18, 19, 20 years, that it's been horrible because they've made the playoffs. They've won a World Series in that time span. They've never been below 500. It's not that the Yankees' way of doing things is so far off from like what teams should be doing that it requires, you know, we need to sit through 5 years of being miserable. It's all over. Like, we're going to go into next year. It's going to be the worst year ever. It needs fine-tuning. It needs reevaluation. I think the issue is it hasn't had those fine-tunings and reevaluations at the rate that other teams have it at. Teams and baseball and data and league trends change quickly. And if you look at the Yankees minor league pitching development and their major league pitching development, it reflects that. When Matt Blake came over in 2021, the big thing was changeups. And now part of that was because, you know, pitchers were using substances that made it a little bit easier to grip the ball. So throwing a changeup was a lot easier, right? It is something that it's a fuel pitch, right? And any pitcher who tells you this, you know, it is a fuel pitch, and having some foreign substances can help with that feel. Then they shifted, right? In 2022, it became cutters. At the minor league level, it still is cutters. They are far and away the most cutter-heavy team in baseball, and at the major league level, that was what they were doing as well. This year, they've kind of dialed that back a little bit and kind of adjusted. Sweepers are a big thing for them. They're still a big sweeper team. I imagine at some point, look at Clay Holmes, for example. Big sweeper guy who went back to a gyro slider to also incorporate with the sweeper because he wanted to make sure he had a pitch to use against lefties. So it's always just fine-tuning, small little things, making adjustments, catching up to the league, innovating, all those little things that it doesn't feel like they're doing offensively. And, personally looking at their veterans, like those guys taking a big step back, part of that is age, but I think part of that reflects on a poor ability to adjust. Why are the Yankees not hitting high velocity? That probably has a lot to do with bat speed, right? Bat speed is a big thing, a big correlating factor when it comes to hitting velocity. Max Muncy flat out said, everybody's throwing 100 nowadays, and now we have to catch up, we being hitters, of course. And that's what he and other Dodgers did. They went out, and I've talked about this extensively. They went out and they improved their bat speed to handle big velocity. And I think the Yankees, I don't know if that exactly is the fix, but I think things like that, finding problems and then solving them proactively instead of waiting for them to cost you a season potentially, it is a course of action they need to start taking. Looking at their minor league guys, looking at, you were talking about like, hey, the development, like it's not where it should be. Oswald Peraza comes up, in mid-August. He's got a toe tap, right? This guy's 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. This is not a small guy, right? This isn't we're not talking about a dude who's frail. We're not talking about, fringe major league power. I mean, Aiden, we just saw him hit a ball 440 feet into the left field bleachers at 110 miles an hour. He's hit a ball 112 miles an hour at the minor league level. I don't think we're looking at a guy who needs to think about, hey, I got to go up there and I got to just find a way to put the ball in play and hope I can put the ball in play enough to make this work. His profile throughout the minor leagues has been big power and not big power per se, but, big swings, trying to, hit for power because that's what he does, right? And I feel like the Yankees are trying to fit players into a mold that they maybe aren't supposed to be at, and optimizing a player's strengths, that's where they should be. So I guess the next question I have for you is, not just what do they need to fix, because I think that's a lot harder of a question and would require a much more time allotted to figure out, but like what areas of the organization do you think need the most eyes put on them, especially by that third-party audit, and like which parts of the organization do you feel need the most improvement and the most reevaluation going forward?
You made fantastic points there. I really think you really captured, everything that needed to be said there. But more, you touched a little bit on, Rizzo, DJ, and Stanton taking a step back. And, one thing that kind of I noticed over the course of the season is that, okay, so June, July, late June, I think, or maybe it was early June, but whenever Judge went down, I'm sorry, the time just has blurred for me, but whenever Judge went down, he not fractured his toe. He injured his toe against the Dodgers, and, we thought he was going to be on the IL for just like 10, 20 days. That wasn't the case, but when your captain goes down, when your best player goes down, someone needs to step up. And that's not what happened this year. No one stepped up, and not even just from a playing performance standpoint. I felt like watching the games, I was sitting there going, Judge is not playing. Who is the leader on the field right now? And I went down the list, and I just thought, there is no leader right now. There's no veteran taking that step up to try and be in the leader. You could say maybe Volpe could have been a leader, but, he's batting like, 220 and at that point, and was still adjusting to the major leagues. But you look at a guy like Rizzo, I don't really think he tried to take much of a step leadership-wise, and that's not anything on his character. I don't know. But, he also was concussed, so that's a whole nother thing. He couldn't hit the ball. DJ LeMahieu was obviously not going to be a leader. That guy is famous for just, not talking and kind of being a little robotic. And Stanton, he didn't really take that step up either. Judge has been injured in the past, and Stanton has stepped up and carried the load by performing a lot better. I believe it was in, I want to say 2018, Stanton's first year with the Yankees. Judge went down for about a month, and Stanton just went off. But he didn't do that this year. He hasn't stepped up all year. All he has done is just hit home runs, and that's about it. That's why his OPS is still not 400. But as for like what needs to be changed organizationally, talk about this third party audit on the analytics department. I mean, you also just they're looking at the front office too. So you have to look at who's making the decisions right now, and are these the best decisions. I think there's too much. We've seen Hal has had a little bit of overstep and interfering with how the Yankees front office operates. I think Cashman, I go back and forth on if he should still be here or not. I think he's made some very poor decisions. I think he's made very great decisions, but is it time for to split up? Is it time to move on from him? But as for the analytics department, I think I just, it's a mystery to me just what went wrong with them this year, because time and time and again we're told that the Yankees have some of the best analytics guys in the game, and what happened this year? What was the disconnect? You also need to the hitting philosophy in the organization needs to change. I think it was great. I mean, it wasn't great that it happened, but I think it was a big step for the Yankees to fire Dylan Lawson in the middle of the season this year. It came out that the players just did not like him. How are players going to be coached if they don't like the coach? How are they going to like the message if they don't like the messenger? So, I don't know if Sean Casey is staying there after this season, but if he is, you got to hope that he's a guy who connects with the players, and like you said earlier, you need to start coaching these guys to their strengths instead of molding them into, something that they want them to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a big thing that you talked about in terms of do jobs have to be on the line here? The Yankees have, for the most part, kept a lot of people in key positions, over the last 20 years. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, when I opened, about my points about, certain people being here and not being here, they've been here for a while because the team has been good for a while, right? Like the team, let's be real here. Like, let's face it right now. The worst that we've gotten has been like this year. And we're probably going to finish above 500. Not guaranteed, but we probably will, or close to it. Is that bottoming out? For this organization, yes, right? Like for the standards and the financial investment, yes, this is bottoming out. Now, is it time to make those changes? I think that in certain regards, yes. Like I think in certain regards, certain people should not continue to have their jobs. I think it would be weird to reward this season with, all right, let's just roll it back. And I think that a third-party audit would tell you, like, hey, new voices could help. It's always good to kind of just get a little younger, get a little more innovative. And as you mentioned, like the Dylan Lawson firing, they went out and they just got it done. Like they were thinking about it in the winter. They wanted to bring in Sean Casey in the winter. That's pretty damning, right? Like that's pretty damning for a guy to come in, take an offense that was 19th in runs scored in 2021 before he was hired to be hitting coach. He was the director of hitting, but not the hitting coach. And then put him as the hitting coach 2022. You finished second in runs scored. And then over the offseason, you want to fire the guy? Like, that feels weird. No, that tells you, as you mentioned, that either, the players don't like him, communication, all that stuff. And I think that's kind of the big thing here. That's kind of a troubling trend where, like, communication has kind of been an issue for the Yankees of, like, hey, here's what we want to do. Here's how we're going to do it. It feels like the minor league, like, I've talked about this before, like, the minor league team and the major league team, I feel like, they're not on the same page on things. I feel like what works for them at the minor league level, what has worked for them at the minor league level, what has gotten them, hey, this prospect looks really good. That prospect looks really good. The Yankees have 7 guys in the top 100, all that stuff. If that doesn't necessarily apply for their major league guys, right? Like, Joe Maglacchio, I hope I just butchered his name. I feel so bad. He follows me on Twitter too. I'm not good at pronouncing names. I apologize. But he talked about in an interview, like when they do off-season regiments and training things, they factor in bat speed. That's part of their training, right? There's a lot of individualized things that they need to do. I get it. It's different for a prospect. You're not a made person, right? Like, you're not at the major league level. You're not an established major leaguer. You're fighting for your job. You kind of are just going to do whatever the organization tells you. But the big overall principle here is there's buy-in from them. Is there that buy-in from the major league guys? Probably not. And that's probably because of poor communication. And this isn't the first time this has arisen. And this isn't the first time it's happened. And it's not only the hitting, right? Like now it's the pitching's fine. But, back in 2020, they tried the opener. J. Happ publicly goes, I'm a starter. I'm not an opener. Now the Yankees use the opener and it's been effective for them. Like Johnny Brito, we were talking about this before the episode. Like, can Johnny Brito start? Like, what does that really look like? Johnny Brito's been an awesome Bolt guy. When they use the opener, it usually works. And that's because they have guys who buy into the fluidity of roles. Does Johnny Brito in 2019 have the same buy-in as Johnny Brito in 2023? I don't know. And that has nothing to do with his personality. That's still the same person. That's still the same guy. That's still the same competitor, all that stuff. But it's the belief in the thing that the team is preaching. And I don't believe that belief is there for the major league guys because there's a lot of, the communication hasn't been there. Like Dylan Lawson. Imagine Dylan Lawson says, hey, hit strikes hard. You're going to become disillusioned with that if the messenger isn't very good. If the messenger tells you to do something and, these players, they're not supposed to know how analytics work. That's not their jobs, right? Aaron Judge's job is not to tell you how WRC plus is calculated. It's to tell you, it's to just hit, right? It's to hit, it's to play defense, it's to be a leader, it's to be all those things. Overall, it is on the organization to make these things happen. I think the big overlooming theme I have here, and to kind of TLDR what I'm saying, is the hitters need to have the same buy-in that we saw that the pitchers gradually had in the system the Yankees have in place. I think it's there at the minor league level. I don't think it's there at the major league level, and I think that needs to change. Aiden, what do you think about that? And, if there are like tweaks you want to make to something I said, or if there are any solutions you have that comes to your mind, go ahead, man.
No, absolutely. I mean, I said earlier, the players can like the message, but if they don't like the messenger, are they really going to, take all of that into account? Are they really going to follow what they are saying? I mean, I can even bring up from personal experience. I've had coaches in the past that I did not like. I do not think they were nice people. And when they had coaching moments, teaching moments, I listened a little less just because I just disagreed with them. But I think you covered that perfectly. I just have a lot of questions for what's going to happen with the hitting coaching this offseason, because it's been a topic of question since last offseason. You said earlier they almost brought in Casey last winter, but turn of events and he ends up here in July. So no, there's really nothing I got on that, because you really covered it so well, Ryan.
I appreciate that, man. Hopefully, hey, the big thing for me is just, I just feel like things are never as bad as they seem. Like, that's usually, like, I try to stay pretty even keeled. Like, things are never going to be as good as you want them to be or as bad as you think they can be, right? Like, it's usually somewhere in that middle, in that Goldilocks zone, right? I think that's the same case with the Yankees organization. They can hire the smartest guy in the world. They're not going to, that doesn't mean they're going to be the best offense in baseball, right? But I also don't think they're going to be the worst team in baseball next year. I don't think they're a train wreck disaster organization that's just, everything's going to fall apart. The sky's falling. Like, I want to kind of take a look back at like the 2013, 2014 teams. Like, those teams were not just hopeless. They had no prospects. Like, they weren't just bad. I know people are like, the Yankees have never had an offense this bad. I was looking back at it. The Yankees have had multiple offenses in the decade this bad. I'm going to pull it up now because I know that, and I know this is a little bit unprepared. I'm kind of calling a little bit of an audible here. But the Yankees in 2016 had a 92 WRC plus, which, if I had to watch that today, like, that's actually worse than this team. And I think that's incredible that it's possible to be worse than this team. In 2013, 86. In 2014, 94. This is only the fourth worst Yankee offense in the last 11 years. Now, somebody's going to take that and say, oh, so the Yankees have traditionally ran bad offenses. Well, no, in that time span, obviously the 2019 Yankees, 2020 Yankees, 2018, 2017, the 2022 team, those teams hit. And the Baby Bombers, the big thing was that they knew how to hit. They could hit home runs. They were awesome at what they did. But it's been bad before and it's been worse before. And you don't have to look too far back in time to find it. It's really, these 2013, 2014, 2016 Yankees, you kind of just look at that era of Yankee baseball and you say, I hope we don't fall back into that. I think the turnaround's quicker than those teams. I don't know if that turnaround is next year. I don't know if that turnaround is 2025. I don't know if they make a big splash. Another big thing after 2013, which is their worst offense in the decade. They went out and they spent a lot. They didn't spend smart, but they did spend a lot. Following 2008 too, like that team didn't make the playoffs, disappointed, and they spent a ton, right? Does this season call into question what their process looks like? Who knows? I think part of it is getting younger too. You mentioned the importance of leadership. That's going to be a weird conflict that I don't really have an answer to. Whereas you want to get guys, you want to make sure you have the leadership in your clubhouse, but you also are trying to get younger. It's going to be really important. Like the guys that are currently here, I'm talking about Stanton, talking about LeMahieu, talking about Rizzo, talking about Judge, talking about even Glaber, right? Like you're even more important off the field to this team because this team's only getting younger. Your catcher's 24, 25. Your shortstop's going to be 23 next year. Your left fielder in Pereira's going to be 23 next year. When Dominguez comes back, he will be 21, and he turns 21 in February. You're going to have a lot of, if Peraza is still here, he'll be 24 next year. You're going to have a lot of young guys in that infield and outfield. Your pitching staff is getting younger, right? Like you're seeing Brito, you're seeing King is now a starter. He's 28. I know that technically he's a veteran, he's played multiple years in the league, but he's still kind of a new-ish guy. Some injuries have kind of, held him behind in innings. These players and these veterans, they are going to be responsible for fixing the clubhouse. Nobody can walk in and on day one fix a clubhouse. If anybody's played sports, if anybody's been, not even just sports, a workforce, any group of people, a club, one person doesn't just walk in on day one and just snap their fingers and everything gets fixed. The people who are currently there have to be better, and this applies to the front office as well. The people that retain their jobs have to be better. The new people that come in are going to have to be clear improvements over the guys before them. And I think that's kind of, an organization-wide thing. I think the minor league development's fine. I think all those guys are going to keep their jobs or get promoted. I think that's good. They're going to have some guys get plucked from other organizations. It's not complete disaster, but at the major league level, it's dysfunctional. And I've said this with Alex multiple times. It's impossible to be functional when you're losing, right? Like, that's just how it is. You can have bad blood between guys when you're winning, and it doesn't matter. A-Rod and Jeter hated each other, right? Like, that was a not public, but basically public feud, and all of that went away when they won in 2009. I mean, Wade Boggs and Don Mattingly despised each other in 1995, but nobody cared when they were winning games, right? Nobody's going to care about the, there's no leader in the clubhouse. Oh, there's no this, there's no that. If the Yankees win 99 games and win the World Series, that's not going to matter. It will matter if the Yankees don't make the playoffs again. But Aiden, any final thoughts or anything you want to add on before we wrap up?
I mean, just more off what you said. The Yankees have a lot of young guys in their clubhouse right now. This is an extremely crucial moment in not just, this year, but this is a crucial moment in Yankees history and, maybe for the next decade. We're leaving an era right now. With the Baby Bombers era started in 2017, arguably late 2016, and we saw that in 2017 they were a game away from getting to the World Series, and it was just like, all right, screw it, we'll get to the World Series next year, the next year, and even the next year. Obviously, that didn't happen. I think, the Baby Bombers era took a little bit of a shift after 2020 because the 2021 team was so bad. Some guys were leaving the team in 2022. They started off hot. Gary was gone that year. Severino basically did not pitch last year, I believe, and nor did he pitch in 2020. But this is the end of the Baby Bombers era because you're looking at a completely different new team now with new guys. You got a bunch of young guys, like you said. Pereira's turning 23. Dominguez is turning 21. Volpe's turning 23. Wells is turning 25. This is a core of young players, and you need to make sure that this goes smoothly. You need to make sure that you're coaching them right, and you're getting the best potential you can get out of them. You have to get the best results out of them, and I think that goes without saying. I'm not really saying anything, any kind of revelation right now, but this is a crucial moment for the Yankees. They need to hire the right guys. They need to get rid of the wrong guys to coach these guys to get these players to play up to their potential. The Yankees are not going to be good next year if these young players are not playing, at least decent. You want a, 800 OPS season out of Volpe. You want, Wells to be hovering around a 95, 100 WRC plus. You want Dominguez to be a Rookie of the Year candidate, even though I know he might not be that candidate because he's going to be out for a significant amount of time next year. But you also want to start seeing results from Everson Pereira. I know this has been his first month in the majors. He hasn't looked great, but you gotta know that if you're hiring the right guys, you're gonna get results out of guys like him. So, I mean, that's what I got. This is such a huge moment in Yankees history. I think this offseason, it pretty much decides, how this Yankees team could look over the next few years. So this is really, really important, and I think we should all keep a close eye on every movement the Yankees make this offseason.
I agree. And, looking towards the future, as you mentioned, that's a big part of what they're going to be next year. How good their prospects are is going to be how good they are next year. Just like the 2016 team, right? Like they, again, 92 WRC plus, didn't make the playoffs, low 80s win team. A lot of young players, you hope for better next year. All of their young guys took a step forward, or for the most part took a step forward, played big roles in the 2017 team, and they were one win short of a World Series. The difference, this team already has a superstar hitter in Aaron Judge and already has a superstar pitcher in Garrett Cole. That 2016 team did not have that. Now, on the contrast, did the 2016 Yankees have more talent because they did have a young Aaron Judge and they did have a young Gary Sanchez? Yeah, I would also say Aaron Judge is going to have Aaron Judge's 2017 is a better outcome than any Yankee prospect will have next year, reasonably. Maybe somebody does it, and I hope somebody does, but I think we can both assume somebody winning the MVP in their second year is a little bit nuts. But hey, I think it was a good discussion. I'm very much looking forward to what people in the comment section have to say. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you guys check us on our various social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page. The audio version of this podcast will be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And of course, you guys can follow our Twitter accounts. They're above our heads. I'm Ryan. That's Aiden. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out, everybody.